Okay. Welcome to the Google Educast, the show where we talk about educational applications for Google products, including news, tools, tips and tricks, and classroom applications. I'll be your host, Diane Main, and this week our wonderful group also includes...
Oh, Chris Betcher from Sydney, Australia. Hello.
And Sean Williams from California.
Okay. So you can also join the Google Educast show in just a few minutes on Google Plus on-air hangout. And we're going to have a link to that very soon coming up. I believe it's going to be http://tinyurl.com educast44, or maybe not. We'll see.
Very cool.
Okay, so our first segment in the news, what kinds of things have been happening this week? Who'd like to share about Google Drive?
I will. I
it's
put
coming.
it in there, but
it's
what did you hear, Chris?
I was in a meeting last week with some Googlers who shall remain nameless for obvious reasons, and the guy opened his docs screen up, and there in the menu on the left-hand side was a thing that said Google Drive. And I put my hand up and said, "Excuse me," and he went, "Oh, let me close that."
So you didn't see it.
That's pretty good.
I didn't see it working, but I saw it existing. So it can't be far away.
So that's good to know, because obviously everybody's been talking about it coming forever. This is one of the articles that I picked up this week that seemed to have some, okay, maybe it's actually happening this time. And the same stuff kept on popping up on different sites over the last couple days. So, yeah, it seems like it's actually going to happen this time.
I have to say, it's hilarious. The whole tech industry, the prognostication and the sort of pontification that goes on in the tech industry, where people will talk about unreleased products as though they're actually released products, is quite hilarious. I read an article, I think it was yesterday or today, talking about the 10 best uses for Google Drive in the classroom, and I'm going,
jeez,
it's not released yet.
Is it out yet?
It doesn't exist yet.
Can you use Google Drive in the classroom?
Wow.
If it existed, here would be the 10 best ways to use it. We think.
So we assume it's a Dropbox competitor. We assume it's going to let you store stuff. They're talking about 5 gig being the amount they give you. Whether you can buy more or not, I guess you probably will be able to.
You will be able to.
But as to how it's implemented and where it shows up, and will there be a desktop sort of folder kind of approach to it, or will it just exist within the Google web environment? I mean, who knows? We have to wait and see.
Another type of...
Or we can just make stuff up.
Yeah, there's that. Sean, what were you going to say?
Well, Tuesday or Wednesday will be big either way. I don't know. I've been, of course, this idea has been resurfacing how many times over the last year or so. And to be honest, I never, I love Dropbox and I love Box.net, but I'm not sure if it's Box.net or not anymore or not. And I really didn't think that it was that big of a deal all this time. I'm like, I got my docs that holds tons. What do I need Google Drive for? And just happened this past week. I've been working on the yearbook for my school, and I have some things in Flickr, and I have some things at Box, and I have some things that are shared folders at Dropbox, and it's like, that's why I need Google Drive.
Yeah.
So I can put all these various folders and share them different ways, and not have them in my docs, but have them in a separate place and have some storage and be able to do different things.
Yeah, I had some kids recently I had some kids do a project recently where they had to write some programs in Scratch, and then they had to write kind of a synopsis of what they've, the sort of the algorithm they were using in each one of them. And I got them to submit them in docs because I thought, well, at least they're all in one place now. So you can put any file type into a doc, but I realized afterwards.
But you know what I've noticed, because I have students.
Yeah,
I like having students put a file they need to give me into a shared folder that they've already set up with me, which actually Dan Rizak showed me a really good way to have that set up from the start. But the kids, I don't know if this will be true with high schoolers, but the kids see something in their Google Docs list and they click on it. And if it is not something that Google Docs can work with, like a KMZ file, it gives them an error screen. And then they're like, Mrs. Main, it doesn't work. And I'm saying, no, you check the box in front of it, you choose download. Like, I have to say it multiple times each class period that we're doing that. And kids will go, oh, okay, they'll walk back to the computer. The kid next to them will do the exact same thing. So it's there, it's handy, but at the same time, if it's not something that's openable by docs, like either convert-worthy or just the doc itself, the kids do struggle with that. So I'm thinking if we can get some storage space, and if that becomes maybe part, or some feature of that becomes part of Apps for Ed, that would be fantastic. Because I'm trying to have as little struggle for the kids with sharing files with me when it's finished work.
Yep. No, I think it'll be good in education specifically. I mean, Dropbox is great, and you can get all this sort of referral space, and then you can be an educator and double your referral space. And I think I'm up to about 16 gig now for free, which is, not bad. So getting 5 has gone, oh, really, only 5? But the fact that it's integrated is going to be the game changer, I think.
Hey, can I just stop for a second? That where like you just said, 5 gigs. Come on. I mean, think about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
When you would. 256 megs, man, on this flash drive right here.
Yeah.
I used to work in a school where the librarian would buy in bulk. She'd buy memory sticks, USB memory sticks, and she would sell them to the kids to store their work. And she could never keep up with it. She'd buy these things in, and as soon as she bought them, the kids would bring them in from down the supermarket where they get them for half price. And for 6 months, she was just chasing a tail, and eventually went, no, this is ridiculous, and gave up on it. But the price just keeps dropping.
Yeah, I had a year and a half ago, I had a case of them donated, and they're all 1 gig each, and I can't give them away because the kids are like, 1 gig? 1 gig? I'm supposed to put all my pictures on 1 gig? So I'm like, all right, then fine. I will just keep using them. I have hundreds of them. So in another meaning of the word drive, I was driving kind of in the department or in the neighborhood of Google from San Jose to San Mateo on Tuesday evening, and I saw one of the self-driving Google cars with someone behind the wheel, so I wasn't as excited as if it... Well, and the thing was, we're about to hit major traffic on 101. I was like, yeah, let's see how you do this. It's got this spinning thing on the roof. I was like, I don't know how any of that works, but I'm very excited that I can see that from here.
Were you driving the same direction as it or the opposite direction?
I was, but they came on the freeway and then were off after a couple of exits. And it was kind of rubbish traffic anyway, so I didn't get to see it go very far. No, it came, I was in one of the outer lanes and it came on the road and then it just an exit or two later went off the road, and so I kind of had to watch it from my mirror and, out of the side of my eyes.
Man, I would have been like, follow that car.
Well, I had to be somewhere, and I was already sitting in traffic, but I was like, I think I'm just going to come by here. I don't know, my next day off work, I'm just going to go and drive around Mountain View and see what I see. I've seen the Street View cars plenty of times, because I've been to Google enough times where, I've driven past a lot full of them. But I had never seen the self-driving cars before, so that was kind of exciting.
Okay, and was there a seeing eye dog in the passenger seat?
Well, you know what? I couldn't see who's in the passenger seat. I think there were 2 people up front. There was a fairly tall-looking guy driving, or being the person sitting where the driving would happen, and I didn't know how much. I don't know if those things are still at the testing stage. I never really read about it, but now I'm interested since I've seen one. I wonder
if you're sitting in those things and being driven, and you grab the wheel or whatever, whether it sort of overrides.
You must be able to override. And the other thing was, I found myself wondering when they indicated to come off the freeway after they hadn't been on very long. I thought, okay, so does the car automatically indicate, or do you have to indicate, or I don't know.
So actually, they discussed it in that book, The Plex. There's a segment about the self-driving car, and the people are in there as a safety measure and can override everything. But my understanding, as far as the turn indicators and stuff, that's all automated, and the person's only in there to make sure that if something goes wrong, that it's covered. There's a person there to take care of it.
I was kind of thinking that the very fact that it was indicating.
For me, but.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that the very fact that it was indicating must have meant that it was automatic, because people here don't actually indicate. So I thought.
Well, you'd want to have I mean, I assume it's using maps of some sort to do the navigation, so it knows where to turn, and so it knows where to indicate. But you'd want to have your maps are really.
But it's the thing is, if it's self-driving, it's got to be.
You wouldn't want it to be like a Venezuelan border kind of thing.
Well, it's got to be dealing with all the traffic because it knows where it wants to go, but then there's all these things in the way, and so that's the part that I'm very interested in how it computes that and how it solves those problems. Because it can't think like a person.
I think that's sensors and stuff.
Yeah.
But what was
sends out sonar and radar and all sorts of stuff.
What was interesting in the excerpt in the Plex was that they said in one of the trial runs for it that they were on a particular road that was like a one-lane dirt road, and the car had to be able to, when it came to another car, it had to be able to figure out to back up to the nearest driveway and actually back into the driveway so the car coming uphill could pass it, and then it could continue its drive. And that was kind of the achievement that they were talking about in that part.
Yeah, that's pretty much a gold star thing, I think.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of this stuff. Like getting it to do the basic stuff is, I mean, it's an engineering challenge. I won't say it's easy, but getting it to do the 99% of stuff is probably not as hard as getting it to do the 1% of stuff.
Those exceptions,
that final push.
Dealing with the exceptions, because that's where the accidents are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So that was
speaking
that
of
was
accidents.
Fun.
Well.
Nice segue.
Inconveniences. I was trying. I saw an opportunity I was going for.
Oh yeah, there, segue. I see. Get it?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Well, you're the host. I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, there was a brief Gmail outage earlier this week. I did not experience it. It didn't affect me directly. Did you guys have any issues with your Gmail? I know Dan Rizak did, and I think James Sanders did.
And I know a few people down here. Dennis Grice did, and a few other people did in my neck of the woods, but it didn't affect me, my apps domain, or my personal Gmail.
Right. Well, when I saw that James was having problems, that's how I found out that there was an issue. I was concerned because he's not that far away from me. But I wasn't having an issue, and Dan's halfway across the country, so I thought, okay, it's just, we'll see. But what day was that? Do you remember if it was Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
Wasn't it?
Well, I was sick that day, so my middle schoolers would have been affected by it, except that they don't use the Gmail piece, but they use all the other stuff that I would imagine may have been affected as well in Google Apps. So.
It was only down for an hour or so, wasn't it? I didn't even notice it until I didn't know about it until I read about it in the news.
He said it was down for about an hour. So. Yeah.
I think it was a little bit longer than that. I'm not sure, but okay.
And what time of day was it for you guys?
For us, it was
like mid-morning.
I think it went down around 9:30, 10 o'clock. I mean, I'm just.
Okay.
Like I said, it didn't affect me.
That sounds about when I noticed some messages.
It was around 9:30 or 10, and I'm pretty sure it was back up by noon, so it wasn't that long. But I was really shocked because I was reading it was less than 10% of Gmail users or something, but it was still phenomenal, like 30 million people worldwide.
Yeah, I was going to say that's enough people that you would have heard about it because people are panicking. I think people always have that tiny fear that if it goes down, what if it never comes back up? My life is in Gmail. Like I know if it goes down for me, even if it's 5 minutes, I'm kind of like, what am I going to do? So, yeah, maybe I should have a backup plan.
Well, all I know is it can't have affected our school apps domain, or I would have had someone screaming at me going, I told you we shouldn't have left Outlook.
Yeah.
Because Outlook never goes down.
Yeah, Outlook is so awesome. Anyway.
That never happens.
You're not to say the O word again. Okay, so glad that didn't affect you guys too much. There is, if you're looking into Chromebooks, I'm not very familiar with the State of Tech Live podcast, but they're doing a broadcast this Saturday, and it's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the April 21st. Jamie Cassip, who is Google's education evangelist, is going to be on the show, and they're going to be talking about Chromebooks and education. So there's a link in the show notes, but it can also be found at thestateoftech.org that they're having this broadcast. So that's
going to be really cool. There are some, because Jamie's great, but there's going to be some other people in there that are real Chromies, and it'll be some good conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're gonna share an archive of it later, which is good because I won't get to see it live. I'm going to be somewhere else. But that's just kind of good to know, spreading the word about things like that. And then I saw that there was an update to Google Cloud Print. Now, Sean, I actually took this from your Google Plus feed. If you wanted to, oh, there you go. Look at you. Want to share about that?
I love the Cloud Print. For you guys if people aren't familiar with it, once you turn on Google Cloud Print in your Chrome browser, it kind of remembers all the printers you use, and then you have those printers as long as they're, as long as they're powered on and available. So theoretically, from work, if there wasn't a firewall, I could print to my printer at home as long as it was turned on because I'd already registered that with Cloud Print. So now they're trying to take it to the next level, which is really cool. When you need to print, which try not to, but when you need to, there's more options, and I thought it was kind of neat that they have some sort of partnership with the nearest FedEx office.
I think that's a good idea. That's cool.
Yeah, because that happened a few months ago. I was at a conference, and we needed to get some stuff printed up, and we had to find a flash drive, bring it down to the FedEx office. They had to run the virus scan, blah blah blah, whatever, print out the master, yada yada. So being able to send it that way straight from your browser, I thought that was pretty sweet right there. And then it also, Cloud Print, I don't think this is that new, but it recognizes the different printers that you have on your network. So that's pretty neat. It's just the next step. I don't think it's a huge step, but it is the next step with Cloud Print, which is kind of cool.
Yep. I see that having some good potential. But again, like you said, the less you print, the better, but there are times when you do need something that needs to be on paper. So having options of where to print it. Good.
There are times that you, like you said, you need to print. That's just the way it is. But
cool. So yeah, quite a bit of news items here and there, and a random car spotting, which got us talking for like 15 minutes. Great. And now our segment 2 is a tool shout out. I see that we have Google Forms and Fusion tables mentioned, but then also Google Correlate. So Sean, did you?
Well, I just put that Correlate in because I didn't know how much content we'd have. But if it's if we talked about the car for too long, I'm happy to do it next week.
Okay. But Sean, do you want to share about Forms and Fusion tables?
Yeah, I can. I haven't really dug into this as much as I'd like to. But
same here.
What I like about this is it's Google's just making it easier to run the scripts to get Fusion tables going with your Google Forms. Does that make? I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about scripts and forms and stuff without getting too geeky, but they're making it easier and easier to visualize your information and to run some basic scripts to get those Fusion tables out of your data. And if you follow the link, it's pretty straightforward and easy to follow along without getting too heavy in the whole scripting part of it. But like, here, grab this script, and this is how you run it, and this is what it does. So I think it's really good for an introduction to scripts and Fusion tables. And
so a Fusion table is kind of like what, a pivot table? Is that the same kind of thing?
I think it is, but I don't know the first thing about it, so
I
should shut
up. My understanding is it's really similar, but the Fusion tables are more for visualizing, creating visualizations like the pie charts or whatever, versus the pivot tables where you can pull that data from a spreadsheet, but it's still got that spreadsheet look and feel.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I want to get more into that. I read through the article the other day, and I like it because it's very user-friendly and very, I think, first steps for getting into scripting without getting into the whole like brackets and defining variables and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes my head hurt.
Yeah, a little bit.
So
in a good way, but still.
Should we jump over to segment 3, because we do have a couple of items in there, and then save Correlate for next week? What do you think?
Actually, I'll be quick with correlate.
Okay, so share with us about Google Correlate.
Okay, let me see if I can screen share. I haven't done this before. I click that, and click that, and click that, and can you see my desktop?
Yes.
No. Oh?
I'm seeing something.
Oh, wait, yeah, now I do.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, all right. So this is
just
google.com/trends/correlate. And the idea of it is, as far as I can gather, is that you can take a time series, so like, weeks or months or years or whatever, and then you can put it in a search term. So if I put in the, say, a weekly time series here, and I correlate it against the word, say, I don't know, let's try surfing. Because you'd assume that more people would surf in summer than winter, right? So if I put in the word surfing, and I'm using it for the United States at the moment, and hopefully, okay, so what it draws there is this graph, and the blue line represents searches of the word surfing, and you're getting this sort of annual peak and trough, which you'd expect. So you can see it's coming up between around the middle of the year for you guys, so that's your summer. If I did it for Australia, I'd expect to see the peaks on the lines. Looking at that graph, I'm going to say surfing's becoming less popular. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it seems to be. Certainly people are searching for it less over time.
Yeah.
Search for it less, yeah. But the other thing about it is interesting is that the what it's doing is it's correlating other searches that have a similar graph to the search for the word surfing. So, for example, the word internet cafe, the blue line is internet cafe, and what it's saying is people search for surfing with a similar sort of frequency pattern to the way they search for surfing. And if you think about it, if you look at the next one, that's youth hostel.
Yeah.
Right? And and you get a similar kind of correlation on the term youth hostel, or auto rental, or go-karts. So you can just kind of imagine, groups of young surfy types jumping in the vans and staying at youth hostels and looking for internet cafes and going surfing. So there's an interesting kind of correlation there, and I just kind of it's a fascinating kind of idea that you can not only look and see when search terms had peaks and troughs, but you can also look at what other things correlate against that search term.
So
that's interesting.
So Chris, how much is this moving towards like a semantic web then? We're correlating these search terms that the words obviously are very different, but still making the connection between these very different terms that they're very similar.
Well, look, even simple things like the fact that internet cafe. We'll just go back to that one for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
So we're overlaying the was it the red or the red line over the top of the blue line, but ignore the blue line for a second. I mean, I found it interesting that internet cafes have such a peak and trough.
Well, because when people are traveling, right, they're using internet in locations they normally wouldn't. Like I know when I've traveled on my own, I've needed to find internet, especially several years ago when I was, it wasn't like everywhere, and a lot of hotels didn't have it, so I would have to leave where I was staying to go find internet.
And it's so crazy to use your own cell or your own service that you've got to find some public.
Yeah, if you're traveling internationally, it can be very difficult to just use what you're used to.
Sure, and so I guess what this is suggesting then is that most travelling happens in that sort of summer period, which I guess makes sense. A couple of things about it. If you get your mouse and just drag over a section like that and then let it go, it actually zooms in on that section, which is kind of good to know. And the other thing that was interesting about it, over here, there's the option to search by drawing. So if I click on search by drawing, and I can pick I'm going to pick Australia just because I can.
So you should. We are a global show.
And what you can do is you can get a pen and you can just draw. So I'm going to go, okay, what happens if nothing, around 2007, let's say there's a big spike and then maybe a little spike there. And then say correlate, and it'll go and see if you can find any search terms that correlate against that graph. So it's finding some geeky stuff here. The ASUS P5B, I guess, is a type of computer. So the red is your results,
and the blue is what you drew, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Wow.
So, you could potentially, let's try another one. Let's just go search by drawing. So I wonder what people were talking about in 2011. So let's draw nothing, 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 nothing. Big spike in 2011 like that.
Wait, when did Michael Jackson die?
And then say correlate that. It was around then. Now, I'm looking at Australian statistics too, so it might be sort of specific to Australia.
Yeah.
But,
he's dead there too.
Yeah, well, that's true. Thanks for that.
Sorry.
So anyway, I don't know how to make sense of these results, but it's interesting that you can do it, and I'm sure if you came up with interesting search terms, and you could use this to manipulate data or look at data in some pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think that reverse part of it is very interesting. You can say, I want to know, what things had spikes at this time and in this time in history. That's pretty exciting.
Yep.
And Chris, can you drill down and instead of you're back. Instead of having that long timeline of 2000 to 2010, could you narrow it down to just like 2005 to 2007?
Yeah, in fact, let me...
Or even like a span of 1 year and then just do the months. That would be cool. Because you could do something where, 2001, nothing, 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 spike in September, right? And then see, think of things that you would expect to have topic spikes,
Okay. Have you got my screen again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think what you can do, if I understand this correctly, I'm just going to go to to United States because there's probably more data there.
Because we're very greedy that way with all the data.
If you click on Edit this data up in the top corner here, you can actually create your own time series. So the default ones is just a time series of weeks and another one of months, and there's also the time series of United States, of US states. So you can see that's just there.
I don't know if the pop-up will work with this.
Okay, right. Okay,
but it's good to know it's there.
So you can choose your own data sets, and you can also create your own data sets as a spreadsheet and then upload it. And so if you want your own time series, you can do that. If I I'll actually just show you.
Oh, there it goes.
Show you.
I can imagine people that teach history and current events really, well, especially current events, since this seems to be more, obviously it's when things were searched, so you can't go back too far, but talking about, if you can find certain current events and how they've played out over the past 10 years or whatever. I think that's really neat.
Yeah. I don't know if my screen refresh is keeping up or not, but I've got, if you say compared the US states, for example, and you search for the word, I don't know, give me a word. You guys are from the US. Corn.
Josephus.
I'm looking for the word corn.
How about corn? That's a good call.
Do corn. That's a good call.
I don't know what made me think of that. And what it will do, okay, so there you go. So there's a little map of the US there, and it shows you color-coded where the most search activity is taking place for that search term. And as
I can assure you, having driven through Iowa and Nebraska, it is all corn. I didn't know South Dakota had quite so much corn-related searches going on. But
it's just corn envy.
Yeah, maybe. Wow.
So I assume then if we went back and did our
search for
surfing again.
Oh yeah, surfing. California
surfing, and I'm assuming that California will be dark green.
It better be. We've got Mavericks, baby. Well, California and Hawaii, if they're showing...
I'm wondering if it's going to be states that aren't...
Look at Hawaii. Look at Hawaii. It's like super dark green.
Yeah.
That's not fair. All they are is ocean.
So I'm going to have a play with this later, and I'm going to create my own time series with a list of Australian states. I'll set it up the same way the US one's been done, and then I'll do some searches on sort of Australian relevant words and see how that works, and I'll let you know.
Excellent. That is cool. That's really neat. I'm glad we actually took a look at that because I'm sort of tempted to spend some time with that this summer and really think about how that could be applied. Very nice. Now, speaking of cool developments, Google Docs has been adding features for both. I know that they've added quite a bit in documents and in presentations as far as where you can get your images from. But now you can also insert an image from your webcam, and one of the search options is Life magazine. So if you do a Google search, you have several options. for where you're going to get images from. And I think that's really neat because Life has a lot of good historical content. Who put that in and wants to demo that? Anybody?
I didn't put it in, but I was going to. Someone beat me to it.
Sean, did you put that in there? Or do you want me to?
I did, and now I'm finding that I don't have the Life images though.
You got to do a search first.
Oh, you click on the search.
You have to do a search
the
first.
word search.
Okay. Duh.
Yeah.
There it is. Sorry.
And then it'll say.
No, I did the same thing when I tried it. When I started the doc, I put an image in the doc, but when I first tried it, I was like, I don't have it.
Yeah. So I just opened a doc here, and if we go up here to insert image, the standard is to upload, but you can take a snapshot. I turned on my camera already, so.
Oh, there you go. Insert a picture of you smiling.
Like I really want that picture in anything, but it will show up there.
I see that being handy for student work, being able if they have that's very smiley.
Yeah, well, that's if you're gonna smile big, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, and I am a little more happy about this one. I think that webcam one is really cool, but I love the idea of being able to search Life magazine archives. I loved it when they put it in the image search a long time ago, so it's awesome to have it in here. So just figure classic, go for the World War II pictures, and get some really...
There you go. We can do it. Put that in.
You think?
Rosie the Riveter. Next to
There we go. There we go. That's a lot better. So new developments and very fun developments, I think. Both of them, I can totally see the classroom applications for both of these being huge.
I remember when they first put in the ability to grab stock images, and I remember, Diane, you asked a question about what was the licensing on those.
Right.
And I read a post from Bill Ferriter recently where he was pointing out that all of the stuff that gets returned from the search within Docs itself is either Creative Commons or public domain license.
Right. So I knew that, and I showed that to my students because that's something I've taught them to do in an advanced image search, and they were so thrilled. This was middle schoolers, that it was already being restricted to labeled for reuse. But because it wasn't clear what the source of the stock images was, I told the kids, if you use something from there, just go ahead and say Google stock image photography or something like that. I forget. I put it somewhere for them to copy from. But yeah, I love that that's there, and I'm very excited. Like I said, the webcam version, because if you have students who are putting their own illustrations in something, they can just hold it up to the camera and take pictures and then put that into the document, and that's going to encourage them to still use their own creativity and their own maybe drawing skills and stuff. And then the life pictures, I wish that had been available in Google Presentations about 4 months ago, because my students, my 8th graders were doing a DC topics presentation. One of the things that they would visit on their DC trip, they had to present about it, and I know that a lot of historical pictures of, say, the monuments being built, or famous people or presidents, or like Martin Luther King giving a speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, they'd find a really good picture of that from Life, I'm sure. But that just wasn't something we had available at the time. So I know, I dare not even tell my 8th graders that that's available now, because they'll be like, oh, I totally could have used that in February. So, but I'm very thrilled because it's something that I'd like to use with my kids.
Which raises the question, how do you ever write a training manual or a set of instructions for using these Google tools that stays valid for more than about a week?
Well, it's got to be a Google site, and you update it frequently. You can't
do it with a dead tree.
Yeah.
No.
Dead trees don't work. So yeah,
it's out of compliance before the ink's dry.
Exactly. Now, speaking of dead trees and not wasting so many of them, this afternoon, a number of folks that I know mostly through online means, but a few of them I've met in person, were holding an English teacher Google Plus Hangout. And Jen Roberts, who was one of the people in there, actually blogged about it and included her YouTube video, or the YouTube video of it. Ooh, we just picked up a lot of noise. Was that you, Sean? I don't know. But So Kevin Brookhauser, Jen Roberts, Catlin Tucker, David Reed, and Carol LaRoe had this hangout, and I actually bounced in there for a little while and watched. And they were talking about kind of like what we talk about, but on a very English teacher-specific scale, and it was really neat. When I was in there, I was actually kind of multitasking, so I was listening, but I wasn't actually able to look too much. But they were talking about using comments in Google Docs with students, and it's something that a lot of us frequently tell teachers, hey, here's something you could do, and you could go paperless with the whole student writing and revision process. But then also Kevin Brookhauser was talking about how when he learned about the comment feature and he started using it, it still was too laborious because it was too many clicks. And then when he learned the keyboard shortcuts for inserting comments and then resolving and things like that, he fell back in love with it and has been using it ever since. And so they were talking about something else when I had to kind of cut out of the Hangout, but they had some really neat ideas very specific to English teaching. So I would imagine like middle school and secondary school teachers who teach English would love that. So that is actually in our show notes. Jen wrote a blog post about it, but then also the video of them interacting is in there. And they have a circle on Google Plus of people. You can look for Kevin Brookhauser because I know he posted a circle that he shared. Yeah. If you are somebody that does teach English and does want to know more about using Google tools, I think that was what they were focusing on, just mainly on Google tools. If you want to know more about that, definitely get a hold of Kevin and get yourself added to that circle. And then when they do more English teacher hangouts, they will let you know and they'll keep you updated. So that was just a really neat thing that I saw happening today. And if it's something you're interested in, definitely go and watch the YouTube video. They basically said, we're just going to talk. It's not like a show. We're just going to talk about ideas and things that we've tried, and you're welcome to watch us talk and then comment and things like that.
The impression I got was they were taking the Twitter Ed Chat or English Teachers Chat or whatever, and like, wait a second, why are we restraining ourselves with 140 characters and trying to follow it along in TweetDeck when we can actually have a conversation? So I haven't seen it yet, but I want to. I think it's one of those ideas where it's like, duh, how come nobody did this before, right?
Right. Well, it makes sense. I mean, the Twitter hashtag chats are really neat that have all grown out. There's a lot of different ones now that have grown out of the EdChat hashtag. But you're right. You are restricted to that 140 characters, and then you're having to have a Twitter fall or some column in your TweetDeck or something, and it's hard to keep up with it when it's like on live, the big scheduled time. But with the Hangout, it's a little more natural, and it does seem to be a natural move in the direction of really having these genuine conversations and geography not being an issue.
I got to admit, I've never been able to get into the whole EdChat hashtag conversation. It's just too fragmented and you can't say what you need to say, and someone says something that you want to disagree with or agree with, and there's not the space to say. I just find it too frustrating.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a place for it, and I'm so glad actually that the whole like Ed Chat, social studies chat, English teachers chat, kindergarten chat, whatever. I think it definitely serves a purpose, but I'm with you, Chris. I've tried to participate in some of them, but even having like the live feed, you're like, wait a second, wait, because somebody else posts something and then it bumps down and you're trying to scroll up, and it doesn't work for me as well.
It's easier to go back and read later and not try to participate and comment because it can be very frustrating to keep up with the topic at hand. So,
we all did that.
Yeah, we should probably bust through. Whoa, Chris, you added like a ton of stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to use it all.
Save some of it for next week. But I am curious about your own Gmail usage. So the Gmail meter, is that similar to what Sean showed us recently?
No, I've got to check this out.
If it is, I don't know.
Is that the thing that Sean you were showing us a few weeks back? I'm trying to remember.
No,
I don't remember it being called Gmail meter though. No, this is different.
This is the script that you install.
What you showed us was Google account activity, Sean.
Yeah, it's your whole the overall account.
Okay.
Yeah, I've set this up, and I'm still waiting for it to. It must take a while to go through your inbox the very first time before it sends you the report. So I haven't seen the finished report yet, but there's a link there in the show notes. Basically, it's a script that you install into your. You create a spreadsheet and install the script into the spreadsheet, and then authorize it to read your Gmail account. and it'll just once a month send you a whole bunch of statistics on how many threads, how many responded, how many you sent, how many replied to. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff.
And it looks like kind of a daily breakdown. And
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Now,
this would be good for me. I'm looking at time before first response, like how long it sits in your mailbox before you take care of it.
I saw there's some neat features, and like how long your emails tend to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I need. Some verified documentary evidence that I actually don't reply to emails.
Yeah. Now, the privacy people out there will be like, no, this is horrible. And to that I say, then don't do it.
And especially if it's something
you
where
have to
you
go
run a script. It's
But they'll be like, but I do want to know all these things.
That's the way we roll in Australia.
Read my email. Let's make up some pretty graphs.
I just wanted to show you this other thing. I don't know whether this is old news or not. It was new to me.
Is it the spell check one?
Yeah. Do we know about this?
I'm trying what you suggested right now. Oh, it does know. It knows the difference between two misspelled words.
Screen share that. That's my hanging out.
Nice.
Screen share. Okay. Screen share that window, and go to this window. Okay. So, can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a document, and I've just written ICLAND as an ICLAND, and obviously there's two spellings mistakes there. It's underlining each one to tell me, but what I like about it is it's intelligent enough. If I right-click on that word, it'll say, did you mean Iceland? I can say, yes, I did, and when I click on this one, it'll say, oops, sorry, it will try and say, did you mean Ireland? So even though it's the same word, it's actually looking at the context of it and is realising that Iceland makes sense in one place and not the other. So I
love that, but it didn't capitalize Iceland.
Well,
true.
Yeah, and it's the first.
So
I
thought that was kind of neat. So there's obviously a whole bunch of extra smarts going on in spell check that is more than just the obvious.
So is it just me, or I love the fact that it's even to me what's a better feature is that there's only one choice. It doesn't give you that, did you mean, and there's like 6 different words to choose from. I love the fact that it's
icebox, ice cube.
That it's like, you meant,
well,
boom, just go ahead.
One choice is fine as long as it gets it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. True,
well, no, the reason I like that is you know, my kids don't start in Google Apps until 3rd grade, but my 1st and 2nd graders, when we're using Word, I really have been trying to teach them, try to spell something first, and then when you get suggestions, narrow it down. Well, some kids that don't know how to spell a word, first of all, they're not even close, so it suggests things that are not the right word at all. And I'm not talking Google Docs, I'm talking about Word. Or they are close, but they still don't know what to choose because they just don't have enough experience looking at some of the words that they're trying to use. So I do like that it's basically saying, let's face it, we all know that you meant this. And that's better, although I don't know how many people have kids that young, but I would think that if someone, say, maybe is a really poor speller, maybe because of like a dyslexia or something like that, it's going to give them probably the correct option. So, yeah. But that's a good share. I like that. I'm going to try that with a couple other things. So, yeah, we're running short on time, so let's skip down to our segment 4, Classroom Applications. This is where we get to share cool things that we or others we know are doing with Google in the classroom. And I happened to be at Central Valley Q on Saturday. They had their local event out here in California, and we had a little Google Slam at the end. And Will Kimbley, who's from the Central Valley, showed how he uses branched logic with the multiple choice questions in a Google form to create scoring rubric things that he then uses Flubaroo to self-grade. And he actually has a whole big long Captivate kind of, you can pick where you want to start in the tutorial that's on his website, and it's really cool. So the idea being, most people probably realize that when you make a Google form and you use multiple choice question as the type of question, you can have check a box where, you know, go to a particular part of the form based on the response to that multiple choice question. So he shows a way to do that branching logic so that whatever your first item is in the rubric, if the choices are 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it describes what a 5 would be, and if you're not happy that that's what the student has demonstrated, you say no, and then it takes you to what a 4 would be. But then if you say yes, it doesn't ask you about the 3, 2, or 1 for that. It goes on to the next element of your rubric. And he's got it set up in such a way that, yeah, it would take some time to set up the first time around, but it's worth it because then you could then use copies of it and change it as needed. And he's using Flubru, like I said. So this is pretty cool. Sean, I see that you have that shared. Has it finished loading for you yet?
I think so.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's Captivate.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit play and see if it'll get you. Well, there's some music at the beginning, too. Hit play and see if we can get to the menu.
I think that's Will on the,
that is Will.
The banjo, isn't it?
Oh, is he playing the banjo?
I think so.
We can't hear it because you got your headphones in, but that's okay.
Oh.
We'll save that as bonus
visit the
material.
site,
Yeah, when you go to teachinteractive.org and see that.
You can look forward to Will's banjo playing.
Yeah, so he's actually talking at this point, or has he started talking yet?
No, he hasn't.
Now, when you click on Rubric Review, it will be Will talking, and he's sharing kind of like what a rubric is. And in fact, if you want to click on that, Sean, just to demo it, although if I'm talking, I guess it's, you got to hit one of the buttons. Okay. So at this point, then, Will is talking and taking you through the steps, and it is it's really well done, I think. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing, but I did get to see him do this live, but he was doing it as a super fast thing. But he basically takes you through how to design it, and then you've got this system that you can use over and over again. It's really neat, and I just think, I don't know, I love it.
think we'll go over this in real life, and it's pretty cool. He's got a system where, like you said, it's kind of a lot the first time you jump in, but once you get it set up, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And Will is also very approachable if you were trying to set up something like this using his information and you had a question or you were not sure about something. You can get him on Twitter, you can get him on Google+, you could probably, I think he's got a link to his email on there, on his site. He's very, he's excited about, in fact, it's called May the Forms Be With You when he shares about forms, and he's very Jedi about that whole thing. He feels, you know, come over to the light and kind of thing, you know, use forms, and he's got awesome ideas for using forms. So he'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
And it's nearly May the 4th.
May the 4th, that's right. And we'll have to be May the 4th be with you.
And you know Twitter's going to be ablaze with that.
Mm-hmm. Because Twitter ain't nothing if it's not a place to find pathetic date puns. So I see that our not here tonight but frequent co-host John Soash has some stuff on iTunes U. Is that from last week or is that new this week?
I think it's new this week. But okay. Yeah, it has to be because I blanked out the form when we started.
Okay. You want to share about that, Sean?
Sure. Well, I'm launching it right now, so. All right, it should be going now with Michigan's MI Learning, Google in the Classroom. Wow, this is really cool. It's got 25 episodes there. It looks like the longest one is 6 minutes, which is, nope, 7 minutes.
Still, yeah, you don't want to go too close to 10 or more.
When you can click pause, that's all good. It's got it really well organized. Look at this introduction, a brief tutorial of spreadsheets, a brief tutorial on docs. Wow, 4 different types of pages, Google Sites.
I think it proves that John has way too much time on his hands.
You're probably right, but I'm thinking that it proves that John has done it, answered that question enough times where he said, you know what, I'm just going to capture this and publish it for once.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping he got paid for this in some form or another, like this was part of his job to do this.
This is great, finding the right image. I mean, he has some really great tips in here. What a great resource.
I like that it's all there in one place, too, because I think, you know, you can pick and choose. Like if, say, oh, I've used Google Documents a ton, but I really don't know anything about spreadsheets. Okay, start there. You know, really just focus in on the things that you want to know more about. And knowing John, I haven't watched in his content yet, but knowing him, it's very likely that he's constantly interspersing specific ways you could use this in the classroom instead of it just being very theoretical. But you know, oh, and here's something I've done with this, or, you know, he always thinks in terms of how it would really be used. So that is very cool. I'm really glad to see that.
It's nice to have that repository there instead of going and, because, you know, I do a lot of stuff with YouTube where if you search for, you know, using Google Docs on YouTube, you can get 100 returns, you know, because everybody has short little videos and stuff. So it's kind of nice to have them all here in one place, like you said.
Yeah, and if you find that you like John's style, you've got lots more by the same person. That's nice. So I see that somebody highlighted the last item. Do we have time to go over that? Julia Stiglitz.
I just found that. I thought I'd mention it. Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it, Chris. Yeah.
It's just actually I've lost the page. The link's in the show notes. It's just a good little video. It goes for about an hour. It's a capture of a webcast that Julia did called 32 Ways to Use Google Apps in the Classroom. I don't know how old it is. I think it's using an earlier version of Docs, and she said a couple of things that I know have since been updated. But overall, I sort of skipped through it, and it seemed kind of useful. So.
Well, like we were saying before, she could be using an earlier version of Docs yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, she doesn't have one.
Right.
Yeah, like last week. So no, that's cool. I mean, the theory is all going to be very similar, and then hopefully she doesn't refer to anything that's been gotten rid of and not replaced with something better. But I recognize.
No, as I was skipping through it, though, someone asked a question: Can you open up a document so that it only allows commenters and not editing? And she said, no, you can't.
But now you can.
Now you can. So it's one of those things that just keeps getting better and better.
Yes, that is a very nice little tweak they added in there. But I recognize Julie's name because she's going to be. Sorry. No, she's going to be at the California App Summit, is she not?
She is. She's one of the featured presenters. She's going to be on. It's one of the spotlight speakers.
Indeed, she is.
So
Sean, do you want to share about some of those events that are happening, that are coming up?
Well, yeah, there's a bunch of events. This one, you know, is the first California App Spread Summit, which is going to be pretty epic up in Santa Clara, up near you, Diane. And
yes.
I'm thinking you'll probably be there in some shape.
Yeah. It's in my backyard, so I'm hoping so.
So, yeah, and there's going to be a lot of... there's going to be some Googlers there. There's going to be, I believe they're planning on having kind of a hackathon with some of the engineers and a lot of other great resources. But that's not to say it's not for beginning users too. So, you know, kind of doing, I think it's 4 different strands from beginner, intermediate, power user to like let's talk code. And so that's coming up in this summer in Santa Clara, and then there's also...
dates, I think, are July 12th and 13th. Is that right?
That sounds right. I believe it is. The link is in the show notes, and and I think also if people register fairly soon, the first like 200 people who register get entered into a raffle to actually go and tour the Googleplex, which is pretty cool, pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty good. And then there's there's a couple of other the Google Summits coming up. I think this one might be mistyped in the show notes.
It looks like Midwest. Is that the Midwest Google Conference?
Yeah, but I think there might be a different one coming up. But there is also the link for the Midwest Summit in there. So that's coming up. There's also the international one is coming up in Prague. I don't know if you guys saw that on Google Plus or not.
Oh, I think I saw something about that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of cool. Looking through the show notes, wow, it's also planning underway for Sydney.
And possibly Melbourne.
Chris, how close is that to you? Oh, you are. Awesome.
He is in Sydney.
I'm part of the organising committee.
Excellent.
Awesome. How's that coming along?
Yeah, good. We're just trying to confirm a venue at the moment. We've got a couple of good ones in mind, and negotiations are underway. But we're looking for that to be I think it's the 17th and 18th of January.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be free that time.
Come on down.
He already knows now. And it's
Well, you know,
summer there.
No, so it's good. We've never had one here, so it'll be good. And they're talking about holding one in Melbourne possibly as well.
Wow, that is
another
awesome.
6 months later, so that'll be good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Very exciting. There's
Come
a
up with
lot
some
going
way to
on.
get you guys down here.
Oh, I've never been, and trust me, I'll be on the next plane if you can get me there.
It doesn't take much.
So yeah, there's a lot of really neat stuff going on, and do be on the lookout on Google Plus and on Twitter and other outlets of information for these different events coming up, because there's so much. There's a lot of people out there doing things, and these are the perfect opportunities to get together and meet these folks, and then network, and then you can always call on them to give you ideas or to give us content for these shows. Don't forget that you should check out the Wilderness Classroom Field Report, which is the newest EdReach podcast on the EdReach Network.
Have either of you
Mondays
had a
at
chance
7
to check it
a.m. Eastern. I have not yet. I've heard really good things, though. So Dave and Amy Freeman.
Yeah, I listened to the first 2 episodes.
Tell us what it's about.
They seem like really good folks. Right now they're taking a trip. They're like doing the whole eastern seaboard of the United States, and they've got like a satellite phone with them, and coming up with all these great, like, you know how hard it is now to get kids out in nature and doing things in an educational setting. So they're coming up, and they have a blog that they post to as well as a satellite phone, and they're doing these call-ins on the trip and talking about things and presenting, you know, kind of challenges for the kids to think about and explaining what's going on, and it's just really cool. They start off with they're going to be dog sledding at the beginning, and then they're picking up some kayaks, and they're going to be kayaking down the eastern seaboard, and I mean, it just sounds really cool. Wow. I've only listened to the first 2 episodes, but it's going to be good.
That's an adventure. That sounds great. That's the kind of thing that's fun to follow, because you're wondering where they are and what they're up to this week and stuff. And
they're both
so many
teachers,
variables.
So they're like everything they do. They've got, you know, a lesson plan behind it, but it's still really cool and fun.
Yeah, of course it is, because teachers are cool. So no, that sounds great. So definitely do catch it. Mondays at 7 a.m. Eastern is when that gets posted. That's going to do it for this week on the Google Educast show. Big thanks to Chris Betcher and Sean Williams. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for hosting.
And don't forget, you can follow at EdReachUs on Twitter. You can also like our Facebook page at facebook.com/EdReach. That is a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcasts, and news coming out of EdReach. You can always shoot us an email for this show at googleeducast@edreach.us. And thank you again for joining us. Continue the conversation at edreach.us, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good seeing you again, Chris.
Yeah.
Good night.
Night, boys.